Hello and welcome to Out of Sight Artist Focus program. Today it is a great pleasure to be here with Martine Viale. I first met Martine in 2011 when she was the first international artist to perform for Out of Sight, the public performance festival. And Martine has recently, she was born in Montreal, Quebec, and lives and works in Perpignan in France. And her work is based in action art and is contextual and site-specific. And she really has, she's transitioned in her work to really dedicating a practice to the public space and to urban situations and these unusual spaces that we find as we wander around in our life that facilitate these unpredictable encounters with passersby. She is interested in the momentary loss of bearings and the use of actions as a tool for examining personal and social conditions. The body in action is at the center of her practice, and she is inspired by the interval between art and the everyday and the multiple points where the two can intersect. She has performed in and presented in several festivals, galleries, and site-specific contexts internationally, including Brazil, Israel, Poland, Cyprus, the United States, Britain, France, Belgium, Serbia, the Philippines, Japan, Scotland, Spain, Ukraine, and Denmark. She has conducted several workshops on action art and performance art as a guest artist in Montreal at Studio 303, La Centrale Gallery Powerhouse in Chicago for Out of Sight and at Defibrillator Performance Art Gallery, as well as in France, Clarine, Metz, Le Space, Le Pien, Le Quartz, Scene Nationale de Brest, Canal d'Ons in France, in Paris. In Belgium at La Cambre, and in Ukraine at the School of Performance in Lviv, in the UK, Northumbria University and Newcastle upon Tyne. And in France at Passion, Mad 18, Madrid. And so the first, we'll start today's Artist Focus program with showing two performances by Martine. One is a solo piece and another is a collaborative piece with Marsa Go. And then we'll go have a conversation with Martine. And then we'll turn it over to you, the audience, to ask questions. So I'm going to begin by sharing a piece that, called Intramuros 3 Part 2 that was performed at the first Cyprus International Performance Festival in 2013. So let me just... Hang on, sorry, we have a little bit of a technical issue as we don't see the video. So let me, here we go. Let me move this back.
Mm.
So this next piece is a collaborative piece that Martine did with Serena Gould, and it's a recent performance. I think you did it in 2020.
I did it last week. Yeah,
last week, the most recent. and so let me take a few minutes to share this with you.
Can you see me?
I can see you. Yes. Continuăm un loc. Quando si approfondisce un loc, per me un loc è algo che non si riesce a poter arrivare. E l'estiu sempre estiu al loc. El loc és diferent al loc. Loc diferent. Loc de línia. Loc de fil. Loc. I més groc, i molt de daurat. Si pogués arribar al daurat amb el groc, arribaria al daurat. I si pogués encara duraria més. Però jo vull arribar al groc. Jo vull al groc. Jo vull groc. Més groc, fins arribar al groc. I can't see you. I si agafo el groc i l'estiro, i el vaig estirant, segur que arribo al daurat. I a mi m'agradaria que tot fos daurat. I quan treballo, vull que el daurat sigui daurat. I a vegades en espais naturals, quan hi ha la natura, no puc fer servir daurat. I per això faig servir el groc. Perquè el groc el trobo a la natura, el trobo en espais naturals. En canvi, el daurat ja m'agradaria trobar-ho sovint. Martine, parla'm del negre, sisplau. Què és el negre per tu?
Pour moi, le noir, je l'utilise en fait dans mon travail parce que ça me permet d'être à la fois au centre et en périphérie. C'est l'anonymat du noir que j'aime. Aussi parce que j'aime le fait qu'on voit la peau plus c'est plus direct. En fait, j'aime que le noir soit subtil, mais à la fois, ça contient toutes les couleurs. Par exemple, n'hésitez pas à changer de place si vous voulez voir mieux.
Hello and welcome to Out of Sight's Artist Focus program, where we're interviewing Out of Sight alums. And Martine, it is a great pleasure to be with Martine Viale today, who first performed in our first year of Out of Sight in 2011, which is nearly 10 years ago now. And we've had an ongoing dialogue and conversation around performance practice. So Martine, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So the first question that I want to ask you today, which is part of this ongoing dialogue between thinking about spectacle versus encounter, and what informed your artistic practice to transition from installation performance to a deepen where these performances were a deep investigation of the body and your personal relationship to the space, to the more recent encounters, which are really investigating your body within public space?
Well, actually, it happened gradually. It wasn't like an overnight thing. And as you saw in the first video, I did a lot of durational work with a lot of material. And I wanted to challenge myself in my practice and moving something inside. And so it's really like around 2013. Well, I did Out of Sight, and after that, I started a 1-year project in the public space with an art center in Montreal called d'Art. And it's really when my practice started to shift, because the public space allow me, it's the perfect place for unpredictable moments, and it allowed me to play, really, and it's far from being safe, because you're vulnerable, anything can happen. And at the same time, it's also for me important to position myself as an artist, like you talk about my body in the public space. And so to be fully present and to underline things that we overlooked, we overlook in our society, and including the position of art in the public space.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really important point there, about the sense of risk. I was teaching at a contemporary research class at the Art Institute, and one of the things I asked the students to do was create an action in public space. And one of the students said to me, now I've done this, I feel I can do anything. And, because there is this, it is, there's something, you're taking a risk. You talked about the sense of vulnerability. And, Goethe talks about this idea of courage and about climbing over the wall. And when we climb over the wall and take courage to do something, then we're creating this moment of unpredictability. And I think it is these subtle interactions that you create. And I just want to talk about the first performance that we showed, where it was this performance in an installation. Mm-hmm. You were taking you were using the paper to draw a measurement of the foot in the paper, and then the paper was being folded. Was that a measurement of the foot? Am I right in thinking that? Or as the paper was folded?
Yeah, it was kind of a measurement. I don't know about the foot, but like it's almost like putting an imprint in a site, but it's an ephemeral imprint. It's an invisible imprint, you know, because most of the traces are gone after the performance, and so if somebody comes the next day, there's nothing left, right? So, and I guess it brings me back to the public space, because in the public space, if you do something very little, you're invisible. You're an anonymous body. And I guess to me, that's also part of the risk taken as an artist, to assume this position of the invisible. You know, the non-spectacle, as we spoke a little bit earlier, la société, the society of the spectacle. I guess at that point, I chose consciously to go to position myself on opposite to that kind of spectacle, you know. So most of the time, people don't see it. I don't have an audience. It's like it's passersby, but I get a document, you know.
And I think this is, you know, this parallel that does connect your work is the affirmative presence of the body in space. And
it's like the measurement of the first video, you know, it's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to actually talk about, you know, is in the first video, your foot is working in relationship to the material to create a measurement of the body that is measuring the space. And it's about that relationship, this intimate and quiet interaction and engagement with the body. And I know from you know, knowledge of your work that the earlier work was really focused on this exploration of identity and self-portraiture and, you know, presence of your own story and thinking about that. And I wanted to, you know, you talk about taking a radical position, and I see it as, and again, you know, talking about this affirmative act of the body and, you know, the gendered, you know, thinking about the gendered body in space, the female body in space, you know, these invisible, historically invisible entities, you know, and, you know, can you talk about how this process of making visible is at the center of those concerns and why that's important to you?
To make it visible.
Yeah, as an antithesis of the spectacle, you know, maybe thinking in those ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's always important to have an opposite commentary to what is actually going on, you know. And that's why, to me, it's important to archive the work and document it and present it in whether it's photo action, video action, or live also, you know.
Well, maybe I could phrase that a bit differently. Why is it a radical action? Why is what you're doing a radical action? And why do you believe, you know, what informed your decision making to to create encounters, because people might not understand the difference between, you know, a performative action and an encounter.
Okay, so maybe I can start from the beginning. Actually, in 2016, I moved from North America to Europe. And at this point, there was a kind of a break, you know, because I left my art community. I mean, you know, physically. And I came to a place where I had no contact. I didn't know anybody, nobody. So, but I was already working in the public space. And I think that at that point, I knew it would take some time for me to get established here, to get even some invitation to present my work live. So I've decided not to stop myself out of necessity to continue doing my work. I just continue with the public space, but not as a performance where people are invited at a certain time to witness something as an audience, you know, but like really spontaneous action while I was moving from places to places, and really focusing on something that is very short and is hardly visible, like, you know, that people who are in the street may see something strange, but they don't know that necessarily that it's art, you know. And that's the shift for me. Like, I don't say to people, I'm going at this specific space at 12 and I'm going to perform, you know. It's more like a trajectory. And that's why I changed you know, as much as I can, I use action art, and, you know, talking about myself as action artist instead of performance artist.
Yeah, it's interesting because Louis Kahn, the architect, talks about a child can wander around the city and see something out of the ordinary that you're talking about, and it can create an epiphany. But, you know, it is a sense of heightening our observations when we walk around the city, when we walk around public space, and we actually see something that is a surprise, that is out of the ordinary or unusual.
And that's what I want to witness for myself as well. So obviously I try to stay in line to, you know, to give what I want, I would like to see as well. And for sure, that is something very true, because whatever I'm doing something in the public space, and there's some kid coming, like very, very small kids are really getting something, you know. And this is where there's a communication happening, you know. And not only the kids, I think some people see that something is going on without knowing what it is, but most people don't.
Yeah, it's one. It reminds me of a performance I did in Switzerland, in Lucerne, in 2018, where I was sharing my poetry in public space as an invitation to talk with people. So I would talk with the public, and then out of that conversation, I wrote poetry and mailed it to people's homes. And there was this little girl who she must have been like 3 or 4, and she was captivated from the start. And she came over with her mom and grandmother. And, you know, I think, you know, in the second performance video we showed today, it was the action between you and Mar was at the border. And you have a wonderful performance you did at a border. Could you talk about that? Because it's about these invisible spaces, these moments of unpredictability.
And it's also about creating encounters. I think it's present for me from the start, but you know how it is, like a practice, I think anyway, that the practice take a lifetime to develop and unreveal, you know, I should say. And so I have this need more and more to share my practice with other practices, not only with specific sites, yes, the audience, but also other artists. And I call it action discussions, you know. And so now I live at the border of France and Catalonia. And this border, more than, you know, because I also lived at the border of Canada and the United States. But this border here is just trigger my curiosity and stimulate me to create work based on that. And so I was invited to do a performance in a small village in France, and this Catalan artist Mar Seriniago was invited, and I just, you know, discussing with her, say, are you interested to that we create action discussion in the same space? Not necessarily performing together, but performing at the same time and see what can happen. Because also this is part of my practice, is that I don't plan everything. I have I call it a loose plan, you know, when I work indoor. So, and what I love is I come to the site and everything changed. At this moment of emptiness, of not knowing what to do, is exactly where I get my inspiration from, you know.
Could you share, do you have photos of that piece that you're talking, that you did at the border with the black squares? Do you have a photo?
Oh, that's another, I will show it. But just talking about Mar's encounter, in that video, I found it was important because we met at the border, because finally, because of the pandemic, she couldn't cross, because they're very strict on the other side. And so we've decided to meet at the border for her to give me some material to use in the performance in the space. And so we ended up doing short actions together. And after that, I had her on WhatsApp. So she was present by her absence, you know, but she was present through WhatsApp, and I was live in the gallery. So that was particular, but you know, in these extreme time, I think it's important to continue working with what we have, you know, using the web platform as a tool. But so that also raises a lot of questions about creating encounters. So I will show some images. I prepared something.
I love that. Again, you know, talking about these, you know, borders being these invisible spaces. And I really, it would be wonderful if you could share the performance you space on the border and the context of that, because I think how you draw this relationship to sight as well is really, and like highlighting these unpredictable moments that can happen and define an encounter with us.
Are you seeing the full image?
No.
Okay, because I did share it now.
Now I've shared it, so it's up here on the screen.
So you see it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So these a few images that illustrate a little bit the society of the spectacle and the position of the that I'm taken. That it's the interval spaces. Now you can see a lot of people passing by that are actually getting out of their evening of theater, And so here I am highlighting some interval spaces on the ground with the pouring rain. So that was quite something. So I'm showing a little bit of work in the public space. You still see it, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So some actions I'm doing while walking in different spaces here with some sand. And this is the work you're talking about. So I was invited, that was 2019, so last year, to, this is a retention camp. So during the Civil War, the Spanish Civil War, there's thousands of people who walk from Spain to France, crossing this border. And a lot of them were placed into these camps. And we have to imagine that, there is, it's very extreme conditions, like the wind is really strong here, and, the cold, and in the summer, very hot. So that must have been quite a journey. And so I came to this place, and the curator asked me to do an action, and so right now we have to know that this camp is a military base where they go shooting practice. So, which is a bit like a paradox. So I did this. I started an action. I had a plan, and so finally it didn't work. And so I said to the curator, just go and I'm just going to look around, and if I find something, I'll tell you. And then I found this wall where I felt a lot of energy there. And so that was really spontaneous. I thought, this is it. I'm doing my action here. So like it was really hot, like over 40 degrees. And so I was all dressed in black, and I had this piece, this black felt, a square, and I put it on my head, so it was even more hot. And little by little, I was cutting a little black square that I would literally put in the wall with like a needle and some thread for sewing clothing. And so that was very hard to put in the wall. And I did that until I had no more black felt on my head. And so then I left. And when I came back 2 weeks after, we had to do it really quickly because now it was defended to go there and we could be arrested. And so there was only one of these black felt that was left on the wall. And there I wrote with some ink, here I wanted to sew the wall. So the idea was to bring back the memory, to sew the memory together. And so that's it. That's the work I did there. But there was a lot of a big emotional charge with this space, just imagining the people there. And of course, the exhibition was called the Exhibition of the Invisible.
Mm.
So,
and this so poetic, this idea of sewing memories. I mean, it's this like this invisible action of stitching traces, memories, moments, one's body to a site, and also within the interactions that occur between people, both invisible, historical, and now.
And it's double invisible because now they build an official memorial, and so most of the people, even people who live here, don't know about this camp, and this is the real space where that happened. So how I realize often I will make some work and I don't really know the full picture right away, but then it unfolds with time, and also the stories I'm hearing, like when I didn't know that most people didn't know about this space. And so it made more sense to me, it's like all these people that are invisible, all these memory that we want to sweep under the floor kind of thing,
Erase.
And it's in our body, and it's a lineage that we carry. And I think that as artists, and especially when you do action art, is very interesting that the body is like an open book,
Yes.
even things that you don't know, that just living in a space you can carry. One time I did a performance, and audience member came to see me after and said, I can feel the idea of the border in your work. It's the first time somebody said that to me, and I realized that it does have an impact on my work to live here,
Well, as women artists, we're constantly dealing with those borders, as well. I want to open it up for questions from the audience. So if you have a question for Martine, please type it in the chat. And I think, this idea of borders, both you and I have moved country. So I've moved country several times. And, it's interesting. We were talking in our initial conversation about the impact of the First and Second World Wars on our families, and this impact of borders, because your grandfather was French and moved to Canada, or
no, my paternal grandfather, who was in the Second World War, was in Nice, but he was Italian. And he moved to France.
Yeah. And we were talking about this impact of the wars, of the war on our grandfathers and on our fathers, and how this impacted their lives, and how this has had ramification on our lives and our, as artists, and how we're thinking about those relationships, and again, it is these invisible borders that exist between people, and you're really kind of drawing attention to these invisible traces that are almost like ghosts. They're maybe
that's what it is.
You're in conversation with the invisible, but it is these again, these affirmative actions in public space that really draw attention to the body.
And it's also to say that my body is a common body. It's the body of everyone. Like we talk about the invisibility. Just one moment, please. Yeah, I forgot to say that my grandfather was in the French Resistance. So this is very important. I got a reminder there. but yeah, but for sure, this has it adds another layer to I guess that it is in my body. It's in my gene, it's in my history. I mean, I'm not doing something that is autobiographic or something, I don't want to talk about myself. I want to talk about the common body, my stories, everyone's stories, I think it's important to and that's what the public space is important in my work is really bringing humility. It's a measurement of perspective, really.
That's lovely. This and that kind of is really kind of talking about the antithesis of the spectacle as well in creating encounters. So we have a couple of questions here from the audience. The first question from Sophia Kidd, and hello Sophia, lovely to hear you today. Thank you for joining us. She asks, are we assuming that borders are always obstacles to integration? Okay, that's a question.
Okay.
Assuming that borders are always obstacles to integration. And I think that goes, when you talk about the measurement
right.
of these actions, it's not always in opposition, is it? It's relation.
No, and it's exactly what we were talking with Mar about the second work we did. And the questions that are rising is there a border? What is a border? And what does it mean for us today? And, this idea that somebody at one point draw a line is completely fictive. And there's a line, and yet you go with the train because, and it's the same landscape. It's the same, but yet it's completely different. And you end up, and you're in Catalonia, people speak another language. And the functioning is completely different. And then you realize that, well, the nature is similar, but is also very different. But the thing we were talking about with her is we feel that this border is also linking us, It's not only a separation. I think it's the way we perceive it and what we do with it.
I was thinking about when I went to Seoul, to South Korea. I was able to go to the demilitarized zone, and there they give tours of these tunnels where North Koreans have tunneled under the border to get to South Korea, and I was so surprised that when we were taken through this tunnel, there was about 2-3 feet of barbed wire in a circle. And at the end of this tunnel, defining the border between North Korea and South Korea, there was a door. I thought they would have filled it in. And again, talking about the porous nature of borders and, these perhaps agency or curiosity, for those of us who have migrated and have traveled, it takes courage to cross the border, both in the action of creativity and in these borders that we're talking about, but also, it's not about these. And I think it's perhaps important And comes back to the philosophical thinking of these acts of encounters. It is not about thinking about oppositional relations. It's looking at the gray areas and thinking about the curiosity and the meanings, the depth.
The depth and the depth of the conversation, because at the end of the day, especially now in our era and everything that's happening in the world, these line of actions have an opportunity to connect within the conversation, So I rather see it as conversation than opposition, because opposition is just, it's fixed, it's rigid. But conversation, you can go around, you may not agree, that's okay. But then you'll debate, there's something going on, there's a flux of energy, and that, I think this is most important.
Yeah. So we have another question from the audience. Can you talk about language? And I was actually thinking about, you talked about Guy Debord, and I was thinking about the Poetics of Space, and by Baudrillard and Christeva, but maybe even Seuzeuse, thinking about the poetic relationship of language, and the complications or discoveries about translations going between language, also in relation to the visible and invisible. Well, I think maybe do you want to talk about what form of language because you're using like body action, like the visual language, in your work. And so, can you talk about language complications or discoveries about translations going between language?
You're talking about the second piece we showed? Or just living here is already something interesting, because just crossing this border is another language, but there's also two languages. There's Catalan and there's Spanish, And now with Mariette, we speak English because that's how we met. But in the performance, I'm in France. So if I speak only English and there's Catalan, then the French people don't understand. So it's important I feel it's important to include the audience in the work, because this is another encounter. And at a few occasions, I address the audience also in that action. But I don't use the language usually. Like you said, in my work, it's mostly the body in relationship with sights or passersby. But for sure, there's we can't take for granted the language we speak, and there's a lot of confusion. There can be a lot of confusion if you don't understand or you mix up a word, but there's still the body language, and that is something I realize. It's like almost not an obsession exactly, but it's something I naturally see. And that came with time, also practicing with the work and stuff. And you can see how somebody feels just looking at how the body is postured or what's happening exactly, And so I trust that kind of language for sure. But also we have this voice, and sometimes it's important, it's crucial to use it. So I tend to situate myself between, for sure in a situation of performance, I don't usually use it unless it's really necessary. But that goes for everything I do in performance.
Okay, we have another question from Franz. Hello, lovely to see you, and hope your festival went well. He has a question about your first performance on the video here was in Cyprus.
Right.
Did you also pass that border to the Turkish part in Nicosia? If so, did that influence the importance of the subject to you?
Well, at the time, I wasn't. That's Franz asking the question, is it? Hello. At the time, my work wasn't so concentrated consciously on border, but it was probably already there. For sure, we didn't cross. It was very complicated, but I heard stories from artists from their growing up in that situation. And also when you arrive, you see the Turkish flag on, the mountains. So it's quite striking at first because it's kind of confusing, like what's going on here. And so a story that really stuck with me was from the curator Christina Georgiou, who made a performance actually a few years ago where because when they got occupied, her mother took the children and brought them to the other side. She did a performance where she took her mother on her back and she crossed the border.
Mm.
And I thought that was really, that says it all, right?
Yeah.
And for sure, it stayed with me, how they live and everything that is bringing to their life. So I think that our subconscious is really at work when we create a work of art, and especially working with the body. So probably that this idea of the border was slowly growing up,
Yes, thank you. I know we're extending over time today, but I just want to thank you, everybody, for being with us today, and thank you all for your fabulous questions. It's been a fascinating conversation with Martine today, talking about invisibility of the memories and drawing attention to the invisible memories that sight holds, and also the relationship to borders and the memories that are held at borders, and which we shared quite a few fascinating stories about. And thinking about how bodies also are borders within themselves, and how these borders become porous, they become boundaries of curiosity. And really, one thing that has been really important part of our ongoing conversation over the last 10 years has been this idea of spectacle versus encounter, or the transformation of spectacle to encounter, and thinking about encounter as the antithesis to these egotistical actions, these big actions, and drawing attention to the more quiet moments and these invisible moments that we're talking about, to really heighten attention and perception. I think this is the key, what we're really thinking about.
And also, I think it's also very important to continue to create these encounters And I really want to thank you, Carron, for this, because it's been over a year. Like now in France, we're in the second lockdown, and the first lockdown, we started these encounters through Zoom and the virtual out of sight, and it's been really vital. So thank you.
Well, it's so nourishing to have these artistic conversations.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's been very vital for our work and our ongoing creative practices this year. So thank you. And thank you to everybody. Big shout out to Wanapa. Can you share? Wanapa asks, thank you for sharing your work. Can you share how you break in and out of any encounter while you are performing? I think
in and out. Well, it's interesting because I didn't mention it earlier, but for me, to rephrase what this wonderful Robert Filiou created or state as the permanent creation. And I like to see every encounters, coming from one to another, to daily life, to artistic life. For me, is a kind of it's a trajectory, like I said earlier, and I'm not really coming in and out of it. It's kind of a continuous encounter. So yeah.
I like, yes, as our practices are, and I wanted to talk to you about that, but we've thoroughly ran out of time because we could talk forever. It's been so fascinating to speak with you today, Martine, as always. Thank you for all your fascinating questions in the audience and for joining us today. Please subscribe to the Out of Sight Twitch channel, and you can also support Martine Viale and support her practice by sending her an account, sending her an email, a PayPal payment through her email, and we will pop her email address in the Twitch chat feed, because we believe in the importance of supporting artists. That's what we're about, and really hope you will support performance art and continue to support us through this time. And so, yeah, wishing you a happy week and a pleasant fall, and let's heighten our perception and open our ears this week as we enter this difficult week in our times with the American election ahead of us.
All fingers crossed for the American people.
You know, let's hope we are safe next week. Okay. Well, thank you.
Safe.
Thank you. Oops.